Thank you, Pat. Appreciate the opportunity. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start off thanking Tracy Scriba from Federal Highway Administration, Adam Hobbs from NOCO, Jocelyn and Pat for letting us have a chance to speak at this one. I also want to start thanking our DOT colleagues, particularly our director, Mr. Trey Tillender, who leads our program, our TSM&O lead for the state, Fred Heary, and the many district colleagues, some of whom are on the call today. So we want to thank all of them because I am making the presentation, but this is essentially the presentation from all of us combined. So with that, Adam, we'll go to the next slide. My presentation is going to be a little different today in the sense I'm not going to get into a lot of detail on many specific topics, but I want to give you a very high-level overview of what the Florida DOT's TSM&O program stands for. In particular, we want to focus on the strategic and tactical framework which Rod just referred to. So what you see here is what we call the 2017 TSM&O strategic plan developed by Fred Heary, myself, and a bunch of us from our district offices. This TSM&O strategic plan is being updated as we speak, but essentially it boils down to defining what are called the performance enhancement goals. Now sometimes folks ask what exactly these performance enhancement goals are supposed to do, and we try to keep them really focused in the sense that travel time reliability almost always comes up as a top priority item. And for those who are aware of the Routes of Significance initiative by the Federal Highway Administration, and thanks to our MPOs, and we have our MPO colleagues also on the call from Florida, so we want to thank them for their support. So recognizing that travel time reliability is a key factor that impacts all the motorists or road users is something we thought is important at the highest levels. Reducing lane clearance time is another performance enhancement goal we have identified in the strategic plan. And the reason for that is because no matter which way we look at it, any operations data that comes in when it comes to incidents and incident management needs to recognize that we need to clear the lanes as quickly as humanly possible, because the secondary crashes are probably going to kick in right after the primary crashes if we do not clear the incidents. And there's a whole series of events that can happen after that, meaning we need to provide detour routes and whatnot. So traffic incident management is a major focus area here at Florida DOT. Throughput increase pretty much goes without saying that we do what we can within the constraints of the system that we operate with to make sure that the throughput increases and traffic volumes keep moving at a certain pace. Delay reduction is an aspect which goes not just for arterial corridors but also on freeways. I mean, reducing delays has always been an important metric by which we measure our performance. More recently, secondary crashes have been gaining a lot of prominence, mainly because, as I said earlier, if primary crashes are not addressed in a quick enough time frame, invariably they lead to secondary crashes. And Florida DOT, especially our Turnpike team, has done some significant work when it comes to secondary crashes. And the last two items really have to do with keeping the ITS, Intelligent Transportation Systems, up and running pretty much all the time. And we have several of our ITS engineers from Florida on the call, and they can speak to it better than I can. So these are the performance enhancement goals. And before we go to the next slide, Adam, one reason I'm highlighting this particular slide is because this essentially goes to the topic of mainstreaming. When we say mainstreaming, we're talking about going all the way from PD&E through design, construction, operations, maintenance, information technology, work program. I'm not trying to read the names out to make it all sound good, but the fact is every office has a role to play when it comes to TSM&O, and understanding the roles and responsibilities is a big part of the equation. Adam, we'll go to the next slide. So while Adam is pulling up this slide, Florida DOT has a strongly institutionalized framework when it comes to TSM&O. And when I say institutionalized framework, let's start at the very top. We have what is called a TSM&O leadership team, which essentially includes the assistant secretaries of the Florida DOT, the chief engineer, the district 4 of the 8 district secretaries here in Florida, and the directors of operations, and of course our TSM&O engineers. Several of them are on the call today. This TSM&O leadership team provides the guidance, the leadership, and tells us what exactly we could do going into the future when it comes to implementing the TSM&O program. Then we also have what are called the ITS working group meetings, which is where we have the day-to-day TSM&O engineers who come in, and they play an important role in things like what you see on this slide, looking at the real-time data availability, real-time data capabilities, and whatnot. And connecting back to the previous slide of the TSM&O strategic plan, the district offices put together the progress report on how things are moving forward, what kinds of data are being collected, where they see the challenges, and what needs to be done pretty much in every possible scenario. And that is the reason why the Routes of Significance program has been extremely successful, and that is because DOT has a very strong data-based approach, including the use of SunGuide, which is a statewide ATMS software with us. When it comes to real-time dashboarding, performance metrics become key. We want to understand how the system is performing at any point in time. And it also becomes a very important tool to communicate to the leadership on how the systems are performing, especially in the event of a hurricane or emergency situations. These dashboards and the data become crucial, not just to provide real-time solutions in the field, but also to provide information to the highest levels of the leadership with respect to how many people have evacuated and where the traffic movement is happening and whatnot. Florida is also implementing many decision support systems at the district level, primarily because the needs are different in each district, and so there's a lot of autonomy that happens at the district level when it comes to these systems. Once again, in simple terms, work zones and construction zones, wrong way driving, for instance, bicycle pedestrian crash data. Adam will go to the next slide. These are just some of the very many data sets that we collect. So the slide that you're seeing now is a research conducted by Florida International University. Dr. Ponnaluri has done significant work in this area, which became a part of the AASHTO Sweet 16 research selection. Essentially, this is a tool which was developed by FIU when they did the research project for us. So after discussing with the district offices, we've identified 6 specific strategies from a TSM&O standpoint, which truly merit active consideration. And here they are. Transit signal priority is one of them. Adaptive signal control technologies, road ranger service patrols, ramp metering, dynamic message signs, and express lanes. These were the 6 topics which were considered both from a mobility and safety standpoint, and operations data are typically required to do some excellent and good analysis. And the conclusion from the research was that when it comes to TSP, transit signal priority, travel time becomes a very important mobility measure, while travel delay could also be another one. I'm not going to read through the list of everything there, but the research has attempted to quantify the benefits that one can get from some of these efforts. And it turns out that depending on the seriousness of the scenario, so to say, the travel time reduction could be as much as 4% for vehicles, something like 9% for buses, around 13% travel delays can be reduced when it comes to TSP. So there is a quantification method when it comes to both mobility and safety. And in case of road rangers, where Florida DOT has been has experienced some challenges recently with a particular crash, there's a lot of focus on saving the lives of the first responders who are putting themselves at risk, practically the 8 to 10 hours they work every single day. So some of the prior work like this one is really helping us to communicate to the leadership or with the leadership and start thinking about the type of strategies we should adopt to improve both safety and mobility using operations data. Adam will go to the next slide. This is an example on this particular slide of a project. We have numerous projects, but I'm just trying to pick 1 or 2 to illustrate the point. So recently, when I say recently, 2 years ago, we started a project called NMIS, Near Miss Identification Safety System, and the project is getting ready to be wrapped up. In this case, we emphasize, like with other projects, the need for real-time data. In other words, it is not enough to collect historic data related to safety or mobility, but there's a need to really talk about information that is available in real time and, shall we say, develop the right kind of countermeasures for addressing the safety concerns. This particular project included 26 signalized intersections in the state of Florida, where the cameras were installed in the field, and vehicle trajectories were analyzed in relation to the pedestrian and bicycle trajectories. And then an application was brought out which would tell us where the harsh braking is taking place and whatnot. And that would eventually lead us to develop the right kind of countermeasures to improve the safety and mobility of all road users. Now, connecting back to the mainstreaming point, these are the type of projects which would make an impact on, let's say, the design office or the construction or the maintenance offices, for example. Adam, we'll go to the next slide. So what you see on this slide is an example of the many, this is one of the many dashboards Florida DOT has been developing over the last, I want to say, couple of years. These dashboards have been, I want to say, a significant mile marker in what we've been doing, because as I said earlier, not only do they provide information and communication to the leadership in terms of what we're doing, but they also tell a story about where we stand when it comes to the number of crashes, fatalities, or injuries, or PD&O under different or the various elements. This particular dashboard has been developed by our safety office. I know it's a little hard to read, but at the top you will see what are called the emphasis areas of lane departures, impaired driving, pedestrians, bicycles, intersections, and so on and so forth. And at any point in time, anybody with a DOT email address can go and see where they are happening. These are all GIS-based maps. Anyone can zoom in and zoom out and see what exactly is happening at these locations. Now, you may wonder why these dashboards are important. Well, they're important because when you have funding that is coming to you, or when you speak with other offices and you're looking for opportunities to improve safety and mobility, these dashboards provide you the first set of information to be able to make decisions on where you want to invest your dollars, and even more importantly, what type of strategies could be more beneficial in those particular scenarios. Adam will go to the next slide. This particular slide, which Adam is going to now show, okay, this one, has to do with work zones. I can spend quite a bit of time on this topic, but I'll summarize it for you. Florida DOT has developed what are called two particular streams of effort, one related to safety and another one related to mobility. So about 2 years ago, Florida DOT formed the task teams for safety and mobility, and at the end of almost a year worth of effort, both the teams came up with a series of recommendations on the topmost and the most important areas Florida DOT should focus on. Not surprisingly, in both cases, both in case of safety and mobility, the TSM&O strategies stood right at the very top of the agenda. I mean, the 19 mobility action plans that were recommended, a significant number of them were actually in TSM&O realm. I mean, there were things related to incident management, there were things related to adaptive signal controls and whatnot. And work zones happens to be one of those focus areas. So we took that action plan and we started utilizing the operations data as the basis to make the case that we need to do at least 5 things when it comes to work zones. Number one, there's a need to develop what are called the developmental design criteria for engineers, for designers, to go ahead and start planning the type of work zones that should be implemented. We are developing a specification document which pretty much explains what type of devices can be considered, especially the connected aero boards, the, shall we say, Bluetooth cones and whatnot. The third thing we've been doing is to develop the typical standard plans that any designer can take and begin implementing the work zones, or I should say begin developing the design, work zones into the design documentation. We are also looking at the impact of speed limits in work zones, and that means what type of strategies should we employ to lower the speed limits in work zones. We're looking at the crash reports that are developed in the work zones so that a contractor can fill them out and provide more information than a typical crash report would provide. So there are topics like these which we are pursuing on a pretty regular basis, and all of that information that I just mentioned typically gets gets ingested into a dashboard of this type. So work zones are clearly at the top of the agenda, just as the Road Ranger Service Patrol is from a safety standpoint. And operations data, whether they come from RITIS or the HERE data that get pushed into RITIS or the INRIX dashboard that we are developing these days, all those things become crucial. Adam, we'll go to the next slide. Here's just one example of the many dashboards, as I said earlier, that we are developing. We have dashboards on curve safety countermeasures. We have a dashboard on Florida's connected vehicle program, on railroad crossing safety, on smart work zones, on the arterial management corridors. We have traffic signal data user agreements with the industry in case they want to tap into the signalized intersection data. And last but not the least, we also have a dashboard on wrong way driving. And here's just 3 examples of what we have. Like I said earlier, these are great tools, but all of these are dependent on the operations data. And when it comes to mainstreaming, these particular dashboards tell that important story. We go to the next slide, last but one slide. This is, I just put 4 major initiatives on one slide just to illustrate the point that operations data is essentially at the center of all these 4 initiatives. The picture on the far left is what we call the priority corridors in the state of Florida. When we spoke with our 8 district offices and asked them what their priority corridors would be, they all came back with the areas or the corridors they focus on, and then we further shortlisted that. So out of the 12,000 miles of freeways and highways in the state of Florida, about 3,500 miles, in other words, about 25% of the entire system is considered to be a priority. And mind you, there's many urbanized areas in Florida, and there's also the semi-urban areas in the state as well. So there are corridors that require not just routine signal operations and maintenance, but also active arterial management, ATSPM, or automated traffic signal performance measures type of thing. So we are planning to, we actually acquired INRIX for what we call the Smart Signals Dashboard, which essentially provides the health of the corridors with respect to delays, with respect to corridor travel times, and things of that type. So that project just got started, so we'll get to know in a few months on what we are able to bring out of that effort. Once again, thanks to our districts suggesting, we entered into a statewide agreement to provide Bluetooth data, which would help us understand travel time detail not just to the districts, district offices, but also with our local agencies. The third one out there is what we call the V2X data exchange platform. So as a part of the connected vehicle program, we acquired a V2X data exchange platform. It is being developed as we speak. The expectation is that the connected vehicle data, the data from SunGuide, the data from our data integration and video aggregation system, anyway, I'm saying a lot of abbreviations here, so my apologies. But all those data get into the system. They get, shall we say, analyzed at the back end. Information can be sent to the TMCs for decision making. And last but not the least, the idea is to share all of this information with the OEMs or car companies. And the last, shall we say, thing that last item you see on this slide is the security credential management system. Like I said, there's many layers to this conversation, but we are looking at cybersecurity also as an important element. And essentially in everything I said, Adam will go to the last slide, next slide. Essentially in everything I said, we include our central office divisions, design, construction, operations, maintenance, etc. through the TSM&O task team that we have, which meets every other month. We work very closely with our district offices through the ITS working groups, and our TSM&O engineers at the district level. They are essentially the key players in making this program a success every step of the way. And at Florida DOT, we leave with a safety message at the very end. Put it down. I think everybody needs to, we all know that everybody needs to get home safe and sound. So let's put the phone down. Driver distraction is a real and present danger. Texting can always wait. So with that, thank you for the opportunity again. And Adam and Pat, I turn it back to you.